According to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, per capita debt among 65-year-olds has increased by 48% between 2003 and 2015. They say debt can rob you of your future. Well, it can sure rob you of the retirement that you want. We're going to talk about that a little bit on today's show. Hey, welcome to the Retirement Answer Man Show. My name is Roger Whitney. I am your host. And we are here to help you not just survive retirement. No, we want you to rock retirement. And one way to do that is to have an intentional plan of dealing with debt to position yourself to do just that. I'm excited to have you on the show today, or here with me, talking about debt. And we're really just going to answer some listener questions. One is related to mortgage payoff. Do you pay off your mortgage? And in our Hot Topic segment, we're going to talk about some of the statistics and fears about debt and retirement, but we can't do any of that until we have that all-important disclaimer. Don't take advice from the gentleman in your earbud or on your car radio or however you're listening to the show. Don't take advice from me on the show. I offer no advice to you because you're not a client, and I only give advice to clients who I act as a fiduciary for. You and I are just sitting here having a conversation, trying to find some helpful hints, trying to get some education to empower us to make smarter decisions. So before you make any decision, talk to the people that do know you, like your financial advisor, your tax advisor, or your legal advisor. Well, because that's just common sense. Now let's go talk a little bit about debt. The baby boom generation was probably the first generation that fully embraced the idea and the use of credit. Now, credit's been around for a long time, but not in the way that it's been around over the last 30, 40 years. If you look at statistics out there, you can see the ballooning of credit card debt, mortgage debt, auto debt, all coincided with the baby boomer life cycle. The availability of credit has been exponentially more than any generation. And the millennials are feeling this as well right now with student debt. Debt can be a very powerful tool for good or for evil, but as we get closer to retirement, well, it gets a little bit more problematic as our what we call human capital, our earnings ability, really starts to fade. Correct? And according to Bureau of Labor Statistics and a few other sources, over 50% of those over age 75 have debt, compared to just 31% just in 2007. The average debt in families with household heads of age 75 or older is about $36,000, $37,000. Now, the biggest debt that most of us carry, the mortgage, about 41% of homeowners over age 65 carry a mortgage. So they got that monthly payment they got to make every single month, compared to only about 22% of those over 65 back in 1995. Here's an interesting stat. Between 2005 and 2015, the number of Americans 60 years or older with student loan debt has quadrupled. I don't know if we got a lot of 60-year-olds going back to school, but I think we have a lot of 60-year-olds and older financing debt for their children and still having that debt, which can really handicap how you live your retirement, when you retire, when you pre-tire, what your life looks like in retirement. Debt is a very useful tool, but it has a cost and it has to be paid off eventually. And if it can't be paid off, and we're seeing this in the stats as well, bankruptcy is rising pretty significantly in the baby boomer population. The rate at which Americans aged 65 and older are filing bankruptcy has increased twofold since 2013. Meanwhile, and I'm reading from an article on Fox Business, meanwhile, there has been a 500% increase in the number of older Americans in the bankruptcy system. Some of this may have to do with medical payments and, life events that force a catastrophic financial situation, but a lot of it is the weight of the debt that finally breaks the back of someone who has a lot of debt and their human capital, their earnings are no longer there to support it. This is a really dangerous situation. So the more intentional you can be as you walk this journey towards retirement and how you manage debt can really have a big impact on your life. And in our practical planning segment, getting ready to come up, we have a question from someone about a debt payment strategy for their mortgage, which tends to be the largest debt that someone has as you enter retirement. And I just want to pose this. I don't have a lot of answers for you here today, but I want to pose this to help you start thinking about this so you can become more intentional of your use of debt as you get older. Because it's really easy to use debt when you're younger. I'm not saying it's good, but it's easy because you have all these years of earnings ahead of you. Whereas you get older, that timeline decreases. So you got to be careful in obligating yourselves to payments that could go on for years after your earnings stop. On that happy note, let's go into practical planning and get Nicole in here. Hey, welcome to the practical planning segment. And that means we have to invite in the one and only Nicole Mills. Hey, Nicole.
Hey, Roger.
Do you want to have your house paid off?
Yes, but that is a long way away for me.
Why? What is the attraction to having your house paid off? I'm just curious.
I don't know. It's a pretty large check you have to write every month. It's the largest one I write.
Is it scary when you look at the balance and say, I owe that much to somebody else?
No, I just think it's like when I finally stopped paying dual preschool payments, and then I was suddenly like, oh, I have this extra money. Like, I imagine it would be like that. Oh, I've got this, pick a number, $1,500 back every month.
Yeah.
Think
okay.
of cool things I could do.
I get that. I get that. I have a car payment, and at the end of the year, I have to make the decision. Do I pay it off? I've been paying extra on it because it's 0% interest. Do I pay it off and save $1,000 a month, which is the extra with the extra that I'm paying a month? Or do I keep it and just keep making the payment because it's 0% interest rate? So on one hand, I think I have like $17,000 left. So do I give up $17,000 of liquidity, or do I pay it off and have $1,000 a month extra in cash flow?
What do you think you'll do?
I sort of lean towards you. I think maybe I just pay it off just to clean it up and have that extra money. But then think of
all the cool things we could do in the business with the extra money.
But on the other hand, it doesn't seem very efficient because having an extra $17,000 in the bank as liquidity, I could probably earn 1.75% now. But plus, it's nice to have liquidity because I've known people that have paid off their house with a huge chunk of money and basically took all of their liquidity that they had, the money they had in savings to do it. And then when life happens, they don't have any money to go fix it, and they end up having to go borrow again, right? Because that's the alternative.
Right.
It's not, and there's the value of I could actually earn money I could earn 1.75% by not paying it off theoretically. And then there's all these emotional traps of people. I've seen people turn themselves into pretzels to pay things off, and then they go right back into debt. Right? Because they fixed the symptom, the debt, but they didn't fix the cause.
They didn't fix the behavior that caused it.
Right. And then, that's the trick of loan consolidation loans and things like that. I'm just curious your thought. And this is one thing I'm thinking of, but that's not related to anything. We're talking about Craig has a question on his home.
He does. So Craig actually has a seems like detailed, well thought out plan here for paying off his mortgage. And he wants to know your opinion on it. So this is his plan. He's 62. He plans to retire at 66. And he stopped the contributions to his 401k and started diverting those payments to paying down the mortgage. which he's still got 21 years to pay off. So he wants to reduce his mortgage payment by the time he retires. And his plan is to pay down the mortgage while he's working. And then when he retires, refinance the balance. So in theory, this should lower his monthly payment. He'd like to pay it all off, but that's not feasible in the next 4 years. What are your thoughts?
And they're going to be thoughts because, in a lot of questions we get, like this one, Craig, is they're tactic-based questions. And a mantra that I try to adhere to is a good process leads to a good strategy, which leads to tactics. And if you start with just simply tactics and you skip those first two steps, in my experience, you come out with worse solutions. And I can't apply a process to create a strategy because there's so many things that are baked into how you came to this. How much liquidity do you have? What your income looks like? What your investment assets look like? How much you have in after-tax accounts and pre-tax accounts. So it's a little difficult to say, hey, how does this sound? So but you just asked for thoughts. So let's go with thoughts. One thought, and I think you said this in your email, but if not, I want to make sure, is if you're going to refi, you're going to want to refi prior to retirement because of how the mortgage underwriting process works. Especially since the Great Recession and the housing bust, they focus on income when qualifying you. It doesn't matter if you could pay for the house 3 times over in your assets and your accounts. They don't care about that. They care about your income. So when you refi it, you're going to want to make sure that you're still employed. And you may get that, but I want to make sure of that. And it sounds like, and I do like to have a paid for home in retirement from a psychological standpoint and cash flow standpoint. I think it makes sense. And it looks like this is not feasible. Another thing to consider, and this may not be open, is I don't know what kind of house you have. Could you relocate, even if it's in the same community, and right size, so you could have a paid for house or one with a lot lower monthly obligation from a payment standpoint? That is something to consider. And we talked about that all last month. And when you consider that, again, I don't understand your situation. But a lot of times when we consider that, we usually dismiss that one really quickly if we like our house. So mentally, what happens is we get trapped by what is, you and your home, and we don't give very much consideration to what could be if there was a blank slate. So if we think of your net worth and your cash flow situation, if you had a blank slate, is this the house that you would be in? Or would it make sense to be in something that could support you financially? I think statistically, it's like 67% of people would be willing to move to a different state if it was more affordable to them. Now, I'm not telling you to do that, Craig. I'm just telling you to make sure that you've entertained that idea. Now, you said you've stopped contributing to your retirement account. So here are some thoughts there. You're 62. And if my assumption is that you already have a lot in your tax-deferred accounts, I actually am not opposed to that. I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea because the value of those contributions outside of not paying taxes right now are that you're going to get the power of deferral over long periods of time. Well, you don't have long periods of time. Not like when you were 20 anyway. And I see what you're trying to do. You're trying to manage what your fixed expenses are in retirement. And I'll be interested to see from others, and feel free to email me and maybe we can share them with Craig or share them on the show, others' thoughts on this, because a lot of people have walked this journey. I get what you're doing. I'm not opposed to it. I just want to make sure you're thinking critically. And again, I don't know the entire situation that you're dealing with. This is the one thing I'm actually looking forward to, Nicole, with the RRC, where we can, in the Rock Retirement Club, where we can have people share resources because so many people have walked this journey. So hopefully that helped, Craig. I don't think you're way out of bounds in what you're doing. I get the logic of it. Hopefully I gave you some things to consider.
Our next question is from Anne. She wants to know, when a retirement asset is finally tapped for providing an income stream, is that asset's value then removed entirely from your net worth statement as an asset? It seems odd to have a sudden decrease in net worth because of this.
Oh, definitely not, Anne. Definitely not. Because assuming you're being agile in how you're approaching that, you may switch which asset you're actually tapping from an income stream standpoint. So ideally, if you think of your net worth statement, just because you start tapping something for an income stream doesn't mean that you can't stop tapping it, right? Your net worth is a representation of the wealth that you've created and based on tax categories and everything else. Each year, as life unfolds, you may alter your strategy. You may tap a portion of different assets based on asset tax category in managing your tax rate, right? So let's say you're sitting there and you're 63. You may take a little bit from your after-tax assets. You may take a little bit from your IRA in order to try to get some money out of those pre-tax accounts and manage your tax rates now that you're not earning a high income. So you definitely don't take them off of your net worth statement. Oh yeah, that would be scary to see all of a sudden that asset not listed there and all this big drop. Those assets are always your assets. And you want to make sure that you're agile enough that you can change the tool that you're using to generate your income stream. So like I talk about the bucket system and having, say, 2 years of cash reserves, I still keep those on the net worth statement. So you definitely want to keep them therein.
Our next question is from James, and he writes in, my wife is a retired teacher. She gets a Texas teacher retirement benefit monthly and has 40 credits towards Social Security. Can she file and receive a benefit equal to half of my Social Security benefit after I have filed?
Good question. And I'll tell you, these TSP plans coupled with Social Security can be very complicated. So the best answer to your question is to go talk to the benefits administrator at the organization that she works at. And you can talk to the Social Security office as well. And I want to encourage you to do both to confirm, because there are various types of TSP plans. There's federal, there's a state level, and this can get complicated. So I don't want to lead you astray. So I want you to go get the answers, because they generally have, especially the TSP plans, they have resources of people you can talk to that deal with this all day long. But there are generally two rules that may offset the ability to get both of those. The first one is the government pension offset, and that's going to affect you if you're eligible for a spousal or widow Social Security benefit. So that's the government pension offset. So you're going to want to ask about that. And then you're also going to want to look at what's called the windfall elimination provision, which will definitely affect you if you're trying to claim Social Security based on a benefit that you may have earned in the private sector. I'm not clear whether that's going to affect you, whether it's on the spousal end of it. Normally, when I deal with these situations, I go read the documents and work with the client to talk to the benefits administrator so we get it right, because it's easy to get this stuff wrong. So, Nicole, I hope that wasn't a cop-out, but it's complicated stuff.
It's complicated. It's hard for you to say without knowing the specific situation. So. Yeah,
but I definitely would go talk to the people that know. And evidently, that's not me right here on the show anyway.
We have one more question from Shay, who writes in retirement, should you take dividends, interest, and capital gains distributions as cash or reinvest them back into your investments?
Hey, that's a great question, Shay, because, reinvestment of dividends and capital gains and interest over time can be very powerful because you're continually churning and buying more shares. But in retirement, when you're drawing money from it, it sort of seems silly to reinvest it when you're just going to take it out again. So what I do when a client is drawing from an asset, let's say a brokerage account, a taxable account, or an account that's already had taxes paid on it, if they're drawing from that account and we know we're going to need to draw money from that account to fill the buckets, I turn off the reinvestment options for those accounts. If we are not drawing from a particular account, let's say it's a 401k or a Roth, I leave the reinvestment turned on and allow those to continue to try to accumulate. And the logic is, if you're taking X amount of money from an account, why not create this natural tailwind to have money slowly build up in the account? So when you go to rebalance and refill your buckets, you're going to have extra money there, which will make the rebalancing a little less problematic from a tax standpoint. Now, you can do this as well if you're taking from a particular IRA. Rather than have it reinvested, you can, again, turn it off so you have that natural flow of money coming in to help you when you go to refill your bucket. I would approach it that way, Shay. You look sad, Nicole. Should we go get happy?
I think we should go get happy.
Hey, welcome to the Happy Lab, where we noodle on how to live a happier life. And I am announcing the 2018 Retirement Answer Man Show Pumpkin Carving Contest. Now, don't go carve your pumpkins yet.
No, your pumpkin will be rotten by Halloween.
But you can start noodling on your design, and we're going to have some giveaways. I don't know what it's going to be yet.
Are you going to carve one?
Yeah, and I'll even video it in case I carve my hand and I'm like...
carve an R pumpkin. You totally need the R logo.
Okay, I will carve... No, don't tell me what my design is. I have to be creative.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
And so how does this relate to being happy? Well, Nicole was just saying she would carve pumpkins even if she didn't have kids, and she has young kids. And she asked me, when was the last time I carved a pumpkin? And to be honest with you, I cannot remember. Little things like this are silly, but they can make you happy.
On your marks, get set.
And we're off to set a 7-day sprint to rock retirement. All right, in the next 7 days, I want you to think about, what is your mortgage paydown strategy? Craig has thought about it, and he's executing. What your strategy is going to be. Do you want to have a mortgage in retirement? Do you want to start making extra payments, make biweekly payments? Do you want to use your next bonus? What is your strategy? In the next 7 days, noodle on, do you want to have a mortgage payment? So you can make that decision and start to execute now rather than addressing it a year or two out. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Wow, this pumpkin thing just sort of came out of nowhere, and I think it's going to be fun.
I think it's going to be totally fun. I love stuff like this.
Hey, everybody, the show it's done. We had fun. Hopefully it was helpful for you. We're just noodling on what kind of pumpkins we're going to design. I think I have to do an R.
I think you kind of do.
Yeah.
You could try to carve yourself, pumpkin self-portrait.
Well, a pumpkin has the hair for it.
There you go.
I wouldn't have to find a wig. Maybe I will carve a pumpkin of you.
How are you going to put a ponytail on a pumpkin?
Yeah. Plus, I am a horrible artist in that sense. I'm a good artist in other ways, but not in my carving skills. And I will personally carve the pumpkin and post pictures. I won't let my daughter do my homework for me or anything.
You can't. She's moved out. You have to
She's
survive
down the road
on your own now, Roger.
My wife is very talented as well, so I will make sure that nobody does my homework with my pumpkin.
Okay, that sounds good.
All right, guys. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'm excited to see your pumpkins too.
We appreciate you joining us today for this episode of Retirement Answer Man. Be sure to visit rogerwhitney.com/answers to access the Retirement Answer Library with over 30 checklists to help you make the most of the only life you have. Remember, you have more power than you realize to create an amazing life starting today with Retirement Answer Man. The opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. All performance referenced is historical and no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Have a wonderful day.